Welcome to Alter. I'm your host, Nicole Meline. This podcast explores the practice of transformation as a conversation between hustle and flow. Altering, changing, growing, becoming, and altering, offering, surrendering, opening to divine conspiracy. It's the dance of the leader, athlete, artist, entrepreneur, committed not just to optimal expression, but to exceptional being. So here are adventures in alignment and conspiracy, awake to all the grit, dirt, and complexity of our world, alert to the graces that come alongside the struggle, the hustle, a cocktail of soul food, new rhythms, and street wisdom, encouragement, an infusion of courage for the moments you need it most. I'm your host, Nicole Meline. Let's alter together. Hi, friends. Welcome to part 2 of this exploration of celebration and ritual, where we're exploring the difference between routine and ritual, or more curiously, how can we make rituals of routines, and what celebrations, traditions, ceremonies, and rituals bring to our lives. No better time to wonder about this than at the holidays, which, as I mentioned in the last episode, means holy days. Time set apart for celebration and integration of how far we've come, of what means most to us, what's sacred, what's holy. Last episode, we focused on how daily rituals can be magnets for our attention, amplifying our mindfulness and presence in daily life, or as I like to think about it, the extraordinary ordinary. In this episode, I want to spark your imagination for how you can bring intention into your holiday season to ensure that this special time of year is actually meaningful and enriching rather than exhausting, that holidays really can be holy days. But whenever you're listening to this episode, wherever you're listening to this episode, in whatever hemisphere and at whatever time of year, this is all relevant. Thinking about how we can bring the sacred into the ordinary, how to be the catalysts for celebrations and gatherings that are actually meaningful, that deepen our sense of connection to ourselves and to each other. I'm recording this episode on the first day of December, and it's the very first, fittingly, snowfall of the year in Brooklyn, which really means it's just an icy sludge outside. You might be able to hear little drops of it falling on my air conditioner hanging out the window that I'm standing next to. But it also feels really fitting because it's the first Sunday of Advent, which is a time of holy waiting. I love that concept. I talk about it a lot in the meditations on this podcast, this sense of creating space for what you desire. Creating space for it in your body, in your life, in your rituals, inviting what it is that you desire, inviting what it is that you feel called to create. And hopefully that calling feels a little too big for you. It's going to require you to grow into, it's going to require community to form around it, right? So especially when we're talking about big dreams, big visions, there's usually a time of waiting, like there is for the birth of anything, right? There's that gestational period. And I love that this tradition of Advent kind of brings in that idea of a holy waiting time, a time to get ready for the thing that is to be born. Whatever tradition you're coming from, I hope that that has some resonance for you, and it's something that you might be able to think about. You know, maybe you're coming to this time of year really cynical. I've been there. This time of year can stir up all kinds of big questions, which can lead to some uncomfortable feelings, right? And that's a good thing. Big questions about what we want for our relationships, what we want for the the celebrations that mark the passage of time in our lives. What do we want our Thanksgiving table to feel like and look like? What do we want our gatherings around the holidays to be like? And oftentimes when we recognize that we're in situations that don't look like that, that's uncomfortable, right? That's full of a lot of pain. But to the extent that you're willing to sit in that, to listen to it, and then also to ask yourself the really rich question of, okay, here's what it is. Here's the ordinary. How is it also extraordinary? How can I bring ritual and sacredness into this for two reasons? One, to celebrate the giftedness that is here, all the gifts and the graces that are in your present, current reality, but also as a form of Advent, a form of holy waiting, a form of gestating and calling in and preparing for what it is that you want to birth, that you want to change. What's next year's gathering, holiday, holy day gonna look like? That's what you can begin to hold space for now. This stuff takes courage. Here's the thing. The reason our gatherings can seem surfacey, dissatisfying, kind of empty, is that we're all afraid. Afraid of being known, or of reaching for intimacy and being shut out, which is really a fear of rejection. Afraid of being rejected if we invite someone into vulnerability. If we ask a real question, get to the heart of it. Afraid of seeming needy if we're trying to connect with someone on the heart level. I'm going to offer this freedom. Intimacy is worth getting wrong. This stuff is worth getting wrong. It's so important that it's worth fumbling our way toward it and getting wrong on the way to getting it right. Intimacy is something to be practiced. Bringing the sacred into our lives is something to be practiced. It's something worth fumbling our way into and feeling awkward about and getting wrong and feeling afraid of and going for it anyway. I'll repeat my quote of Dana Trixie Flynn in the last episode. Magic takes guts. It takes risk. It takes showing up. It takes fumbling forward, creating a moment of deep love and connection, of healing, encouragement, of investment in another human being is worth risking doing it wrong, being rejected, because our vulnerability spreads a welcome mat for each other. And sometimes it takes a few times to see that before we're willing to cross it, right? Our vulnerability spreads a welcome mat to each other. And it's worth putting it out there and maybe having no one walk through the door and continuing to kind of shake the dirt off and put it out again and put it out again and put it out again. How can you make this holiday season holy? First off, how can you be whole in it? Wholeheartedly present, not frazzled, distracted, exhausted, but whole. The root word of holy is whole. It's the same root word of the word for health, which is hail, which means whole, undivided, here, fully present, in the weight of your presence and attention. Ceremony or celebration is an act of radical attention to now. It's informed by the past and envisions the future, but it's an act of dropping into this moment completely, into the sensuality of it, decorating it, savoring it, letting it mark us, shape us. What are some holiday moments you look back to that felt magical? Either over the top or so ragtag and understated and simple and quiet and so holy for their authenticity and vulnerability. I can think of some hilarious, ridiculous, somehow deeply holy Christmas pageants that I've seen. Kids stumbling around in shepherd costumes, angels wailing their eyes out, donkeys yelling the wrong line, and somehow so much truth and beauty in it. Do you know what I mean? Out of the mouths of babes, right? There's a great book called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I love about a catastrophic Christmas pageant that somehow gets everything right. Or Charlie Brown's scrappy Christmas tree that gets loved into its glory. Decorating a tree, hanging a bunch of handmade crafts on branches is really kind of stupid. All ceremonies are. It's ridiculous to walk down a flower-strewn aisle in a poofy dress, to decorate a house with a bazillion twinkle lights and a blow-up reindeer, filling a single candlestick with 8 candles, to wrap any present in decoration that will just be torn apart. All art is a kind of ceremony and inherently kind of ridiculous. You might say the essence of ceremony is waste. It's extravagant. It's extra. And that's why it moves us. It challenges, it rewrites the economy of our lives. It rebalances it. Ceremony reminds us of the unquantifiable. It reminds us of divine conspiracy, of grace. I've been thinking a lot lately about weight, about its resonance in our culture and how we absorb that, especially as a woman, or might reimagine it. It's becoming my next passion project, so much more about that very soon. You can start to join the community around it on NicoleMeline.com on the page Weighty. Weight shares the same root word as worth and value. It's tied to how we give value. Ceremony is an active, embodied investment in what we believe. Ceremony is an active, embodied investment in what we believe. It's a rebellion against soundbite, multitasking, split attention, consumer culture that's a flood, an abundance of information aimed at amplifying our sense of scarcity, our sense of lack, of not enoughness. So every day in our engagement with media of any form, we're bombarded with this flood of information that has at its root, there's not enough. You are not enough. You need more. You need this. You need this. You need this. Don't you feel the lack of it? Don't you feel the lack of yourself? Your not enoughness. Celebration and ceremony is a way of training our attention to the sacred that's astir in our ordinary lives. That radical giftedness we're all living in. That sense that life is not a given, it's a gift. Ceremony is this way of training ourselves to develop razor-sharp attention, the finest tuned antennae to where grace is at work, interrupting, disrupting the story of a zero-sum game. Worship, reverence, celebration, ritual rebels against that narrative of scarcity, of consumerism. It says that what might feel like waste is infinite worth. It's a celebration of what is, of the sacred, which is another way of saying infinitely worthy, worthy. Ceremony rewrites the economy of our lives. Pouring real, expensive perfume over the feet of a person who's become a god to us, who's reflected back our own infinite worth in their grace and kindness and wisdom. Wasting time on just singing a song from your guts, from that achy place in the throat where tears come from. Moving just to feel the grace and power of movement. Here's some other ideas of extraordinary, ordinary rituals you might start to celebrate. Dinner candles flickering on in a window. Making a point to see the full moon each month. Maybe to dance, to set new intentions the night of a new moon as it begins to wax toward fullness again. 3 deep breaths when you wake up, centering, inviting divine conspiracy before anything else, blissfully wasting that time on breath. Calling your mom or your dad or your person at the same time every week, that ritual of attention. The way you pray, the way you dress yourself to greet the world, the way you adorn yourself. When I can, I love to take my time, put on some great music, light a candle, smudge some Palo Santo in the bathroom. So I'm not just clothing myself, I'm shaping the presence I'm going to bring into my encounters that day. A party you throw for a friend's sobriety anniversary or month-iversary. A rite of passage you design during a transition. Maybe your kid went off to college, or you're about to commit to a romance, or you left or lost a job. Maybe you know what's next, or you don't know what's next. Best news? We never really know. But what you do know is you want to gather the best of who you've become in this last season, the ways you've deepened and wizened, and bring it into your next chapter. And you're also aware of weaknesses, fears, habits you want to leave behind. A ceremony can be a powerful moment of transition that marks your psyche in a deep way and signals, hey, I'm starting something new. I'm in a new moment. I'm transforming. It could be a walk you take that's full of awareness, intention, prayer, a mountain you climb, a hat you knit, a trip you take. The altar journey retreats I lead are always designed to be ceremonial transitions, middle spaces we pass through to become aware and own where we're at, where we're coming from, and importantly, where we're headed, what story we want to live. A cacao ceremony. One of my favorite ways to mark a moment, especially when I'm overwhelmed or uncertain at the end of a tough day. Hold a mug of cacao, which is just raw, unsweetened chocolate powder. Like humans have known for a long time that chocolate heals. I like mine with oat milk or almond milk and some spices, and I'll hold it in my hands and feel that warmth and ask, what wisdom do you have for me? We're listening to the magical song Saturn from Sleeping at Last. His music resounds with the sacred, with quiet and epic tenderness and expanse. Can't think of a better soundtrack for sacred holidays. More ceremonies, hopefully some ideas for making your gift giving and gathering these holidays truly holy. An object, a totem, you and your beloved pass between each other depending on who needs it most, like the necklace Patti Smith and Robert Mapplethorpe exchanged over the course of their lifelong friendship. We just read their story in Patti Smith's book, Just Kids, in the Altar Book Club this month. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Such an incredible story of a lifelong friendship that stirred and nurtured creativity in both of them. And I love this idea of giving a gift as a totem with the understanding that it can be regifted. It can be passed back and forth between two people, depending on whomever needs it most, whomever needs its power, which it kind of accumulates over time. Taking a moment, even just one mindful breath before beginning to eat, to be present to the experience, to register gratitude for the miracle of this food, for all the beings who took part in bringing it to you. Sometimes I'll just put my hands on the edges of my plate and take a breath to become present to all the abundance it represents. Or I might say a full-on blessing, but just that moment, even if it's just a breath, a pause to really see the food and to recognize what it means to eat the world in order to live in it, to register all the gratitude for that and to turn my senses onto it. is revolutionary. You're probably going to eat less and you're probably going to enjoy it more if you just take one pause of breath, one act of gratitude before diving in. Really important, especially at the holidays. And now that you have a few weeks to think about and prepare for it, here's a juicy question. What are some ceremonies you can initiate this holiday season that would christen it? Make it sacred and meaningful for you and your people. Maybe it's a certain kind of party you want to throw, a certain kind of party, not just a party, a certain kind of party. How cool would it be to throw a party in honor of some service organization you love and you just want to spread the word about, just to celebrate the service organization, or a gift that's going to honor someone's hard-won path that they're on, or a kind of low-key gathering that's all about authenticity, showing up and honoring each other, but with really great food and drinks and music and pillows on the floor and meaningful conversation. I've developed a beautiful year in review workbook you can order on my website with gold accents and deliciously soft paper and questions that you can ask yourself, or even better, a group of friends or family to really know and be known by each other. It's called the Integrate Year in Review Journal. And the whole point of it is to give you a structure to think back on this past year, to really savor the moments of meaning, the moments of maybe major transition, or those tiny little moments that might have changed your course radically. The moments of gift that even if this year was a year of a lot of loss and disappointment, sometimes that can kind of feel like a cloud, when you look back on it, that overshadows everything. When you start to recognize the graces that came alongside, you'll be amazed at how that shifts your perspective on the whole year, how it can bathe your mind, your body in gratitude. So my vision for this journal is that it would be a tool for connection. What if you hosted a year in review gathering? Just good food, pillows on the floor, good music, and this journal with all of its juicy questions that will take your conversations and connections to the deep end. Throw in some dance music, and I can't think of a party I'd rather go to this holiday season. Our souls call for ceremony, for marking moments with monuments, for engaging with essential elements, fire, water, air, earth. When we pass through essential passages of our lives to mark time and be marked by it. Ritual is not something to be crossed off the list. It's something to remind us that every action we take, every habit, every routine of the coming day can be sacred. If we conspire, which means, you ready for it? To breathe together. A few announcements. Utah and California friends, I'm coming to Salt Lake City in Southern California in early December next week to lead altar workshops. It's going to be a blend of music-driven movement practice and guided meditation and journaling. We'll be moving through the Integrate Year in Review journal you can also get at NicoleMeline.com to reflect on the past year and envision what we want to create in 2020. Wherever you live, if you'd love to host an altar workshop in your community, by the way, reach out to me and let's explore possibilities. I love connecting with you and catalyzing community through these workshops and retreats, and can't wait to see my California and Utah friends next week. Speaking of retreats, 3 on the horizon for winter and spring of 2020. I've just announced Tulum, Mexico, February 19th through 23rd. It is a wonderland and one of my favorite places in the world. Spring Breakthrough Retreat in Palm Springs for young women leaders over spring break, March 15th through 18th. I shared the vision for this retreat in a recent episode, Smoke Signals, and I'd love if you would join or spread the word to a young emerging leader you know. And Montana, May 30th through June 3rd. It is the 4th retreat I've led in Big Sky Country, and there's just no place like it. All the details and registration for retreats is at nicolemeline.com/retreats, and they fill up quickly. So if you're feeling inspired to join, don't delay. They're truly soulful adventures of a lifetime and full of ceremony and ritual that will reset you. And as I've just announced this last week, the Envision Planner and Integrate Year in Review Journal is now available at nicolemeline.com. As we think about making a ritual of routine, this planner is full of questions and prompts to ignite your spirit and creativity and imagination as you think about how to personalize all of this for yourself. It's designed to inspire you in becoming more intentional, awake, and purposeful, and attuned to the extraordinary ordinary, to proceed as though all of it is sacred. So I hope you get your hands on one and start journeying through it, and even better, give one to a friend this holiday season. They come in a really beautiful gift box. And use it as an excuse to sit down together and ask deep-in questions. Use it as a guide for deepening your friendship and understanding each other's dreams and how you want to be able to encourage each other and hold each other accountable. Such a great gift for maybe a partner that you want to go deeper with. You really want to understand, what do you want in this next season of life? A great gift for a young person maybe in your life that's just starting to ask these questions, or absolutely for yourself to sit with as you begin to integrate this past year and envision the one to come. Finally, a request right from my heart. If you're resonating with this podcast, please rate and leave a review for it in iTunes. It takes less than 15 seconds. You can also subscribe to it in iTunes so you don't miss an episode or the accompanying guided meditations that drop just a few days later. I read each one of your reviews. I learn from them as I think about topics and subjects and questions to ask, to answer, to engage with you with. These reviews mean the world, and here's the magic. They actually help all of us find our people. They raise the podcast visibility in searches, which ultimately connects us all to friends we haven't met yet. And in the spirit of the holidays, I'm going to be giving some Envision planners and Integrate journals away to be entered in a drawing for this giveaway. Rate and review the podcast on iTunes and share it on social media, tagging at Nicole Meline and at Alter Together. And DM me a screenshot of the review, because this is only worth doing if it is a real conversation, gritty, brave, vulnerable, risking that vulnerability, risking getting it wrong. I'd love to hear what kind of hope and vision and play it's stirring in you. You can connect with me at nicolemeline.com or on social media at Nicole Meline, or via the Alter Together community on altertogether.com, where you can also find notes and the playlist for this episode. My friends, happy holy days. Happy sacred waiting. Let's proceed as though all of it is sacred as we alter together.